Hello everyone. I hope your day is going well so far. Last week you saw an introductory video about the Risk Smart channel. I'm here again today to kickstart the processes involved in managing risk. We'll be talking today about establishing the context in risk management. I am Dr. Dennis Edogun. Why context matters? Risk, as it were, cannot be managed in a vacuum. It must be managed within a system. Every organization operates within a diverse set of internal and external environment. And we must be aware of what the constraints are in these different environments. Someone once said, if you don't understand your environment, you can't control its uncertainties. According to ISO 31000 risk management process, as you see on the diagram, the very first step in the process of managing your risk is establishing the context. And establishing the context sets the boundaries and scope for risk identification, assessment, and finally treatment of the risk. What does establishing the context mean? Understanding internal and external environment is very important in being able to see what's out there and what's in here so that we can pinpoint the different elements that can impact us positively or negatively. It helps us to define risk criteria and identify stakeholders' expectations. Establishing the context set the scope and objectives for risk management. We're going to see more about this as we go further. Here are the key elements of context setting. First is the external context. Every organization exists within the external environment. Even we as individuals, we are also impacted by what happens in the external environment. For instance, industry trends, rules and regulation, the economy. Then internal context has to do with organizational goals, culture, structure, and everything within the organization, the policies and procedures and the way things are done within the organization. So being aware of the external environment and the internal environment allow us as risk professionals to identify or to agree on the risk criteria, which will help us to agree on how to measure risk. Because risk is actually defined as a product of the likelihood or probability of an event happening and the impact or consequences of that event on the organization or the individual. Beyond setting the risk criteria, we then look around to say, okay, who are the people impacted by these events? It helps us to identify stakeholders and consult and communicate with these stakeholders as we take steps to manage our risk. Here is a real world example. let's assume you are the CEO of a logistic business and your goal is to expand into international shipping. This is your context under which you're going to identify risk. So first, let's look at the external environment. You need to look at international trade laws. You need to look at the customs and traditions of the place you're expanding to. You look at the global fuel prices, even geopolitical issues, tariff issues, and so many other things must be considered so that you are able to answer the question of what if. Now, before you go into this expansion, you look to also look inward. For instance, are your staff ready for this expansion and the added responsibility that may be on their shoulders? Do your organization have the financial capacity? If not, how do you intend to fund the expansion? Is your technology strong enough to accommodate this expansion to the global market? These are very important elements that must be carefully considered before the expansion takes place. Before you then look at, timeliness, cost overrun, capacity issues, and so on and so forth. Those become the criteria for your risk management. So now, let's apply this context to personal life. Because like I said initially in my introductory video, organizations and individuals must manage their risk because risk is part and parcel of everything that we do, right? So the first, as an individual, you need to understand your external environment. For instance, economy, relationship, health trends. Let's assume you let's assume you are an India student wanting to come to Canada for further studies. So you first have to look at the economy. For instance, how you're going to fund your education. You look at relationship. You're going to live the comfort of your family. Who and who within your family will be impacted by this move. You also need to look at the health trend. For instance, India, the temperature or the average temperature in India is different than the temperature in Canada. During the winter months, temperature goes down. Are you ready for that? Then you also look at the internal environment. Internally, you look at values, you look at your goals, you look at your resources and limitations. For instance, to exist in Canada, you need a lot of resources because you must be able to pay your school fee, for instance, if you're a student. And what are the constraints that you might face in embarking on this journey? Then you define your personal risk criteria. For instance, what are acceptable risk versus what are deal breakers? We need to be aware of this so that you know what you're doing and how this impacts your decisions. Then, before you embark on this trip, you also need to consider the stakeholders that might be impacted. For instance, families, mentors, dependent. If you already have children or you already have a spouse in your home country, how will your movement or migration to Canada impact that relationship? So based on all of these, the information you get from carrying out these different analyses will now help to guide your decision making, planning, relocation, or moving, and all of those. Now, some people could just go straight on to identify their risk, but as a risk professional, it is advisable never to skip this step because it's the very first step. The reason is that it helps prevent wasted effort on irrelevant risk. It has to align risk management with your goal as a business or as an individual. It has to build clarity and shared understanding across the team. As an organization, risk carrying managed in isolation. Because, as we are going to see much later on when we talk about enterprise risk management, for organization to be successful, risk management must become a culture. Everybody from the shop floor to the CEO must be involved in managing risk. So we talked about establishing the context. Here I present some tools or tips that can help you establish a credible context. For instance, you can conduct a SWOT analysis or PESTEL analysis. SWOT means the acronym SWOT stands for strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Remember, when we define risk, we say risk can be positive, can be negative. Positive risks are opportunities. Negative risks are threats. And the SWOT analysis allow you to consider both the external environment where the opportunity or threat exists and the internal environment where your strength or weaknesses exist. Furthermore, you need to also look at the political, economic, social, technology, legal, and environmental forces or factors that exist in the external environment. And based on those analyses, you can then engage the necessary stakeholders. Then you review your strategic documents like your vision, your mission, and your plan. Company's vision, mission, and plan are life documents that evolve over time. Whenever your strategy changes, it might impact other things within the company or within the organization. Then you set clear risk appetite or tolerance level. There are some deal breakers. Organization will say, no, 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 I'm not going to do that because it's too risky. But sometimes events that have high risk usually also have high reward. But it's up to you to be able to, to look at the risk reward balance and take a decision on what your deal breakers are. Yeah, to wrap up, we said context setting is very important because it set the stage for meaningful risk assessment. And next in line, by the time I come your way again next week, we'll be talking about risk identification. So, thank you very much. Please like, comment, subscribe for more risk smart insights. Drop your comment. The question for this week is what risks are often missed when context is ignored? Let me take it again for emphasis. In the comment section, please engage with one another and with me by answering this question: what risks are often missed when context is ignored? Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for everything. And I remain your very own RiskSmart Dr. Dennis Edegun. Thank you.